Let's keep calm and mother on. Mothering is way too important to do alone and way too serious to be serious all the time. My name is Christy Thomas, and I am here shoulder to shoulder with you, mothering and enjoying life together. This is the podcast where you can focus on being mindful and taking a deep breath with me and learning new things so you can pause and savor the amazing life you already have. Now let's go. Let's have a rambly life update sort of podcast. I'll start with the big ideas that I've been thinking about because of the book that I'm reading. And then I'll just update you about life and why I'm excited for summer. I mean, it's Memorial Day weekend in the United States, which is the official start of summer, which is awesome since I live in a state where school is done before Memorial Day. I grew up in Michigan and school was always done around Flag Day, and that seems like forever from now. And I remember thinking I was so jealous of all those kids that got out before me. I didn't realize they went back to school in August. But anyways, here we go. It is summertime. I have read 3 really fun books so far this month of May. In April, I was kind of in a reading drought. Not really. I was rereading Thrivers a lot because of the Finish the Book book club. I've really invested myself in reading the chapter at least twice before I talk about it and lead through it and make the posters for it and write text messages for it. I'm loving doing it. But because I was so invested in Thrivers, I didn't read a lot of other fun books. So I'm going to tell you about the books that I finished this in the last week. So the first book was a fiction book called The Book of Lost Names by Kristen Harmel. It is set in World War II. In fact, I listened to the audiobook of it, but I just saw it on the pallet at Costco. So apparently it's a big enough book that Costco's selling it. And it is about a woman in her 80s who sees a newspaper clipping about a book that was recently found from World War II. And then it goes on to why this book is important to this lady that's in her 80s. It is phenomenal. I couldn't stop listening. I think that there was some innuendos, but there was nothing that my teens couldn't read or hear. I mean, it is World War II, so there's a lot of loss. And it is set in France with Jewish characters. So, but it was a good book. It was a good book to remember that in hard times, there have always been really amazing humans. In this book, I read it before I knew that the integrity chapter in Thrivers also opened up about an amazing woman who helped children in Poland during World War II, a woman named Irena Sendler. I will put a YouTube link. I have done so many deep dives just learning about this woman, Irena Sendler, that Dr. Borba used as an example of integrity for the Thrivers characteristic. Guys, we just need to study more heroes. There are so many wonderfully amazing, ordinary humans all around us. And we're not pausing to notice their stories or listen to their stories. Maybe we're just not curious because we're moving too fast. That ties in to the second book, which I'm currently in the middle of reading. I've not finished this one yet. And it's The Art of Stopping by David Kuntz, Kundtz. And it's how to be still when you have to keep going. And I have to say, I love this book for confirmation of what I think about. right? I always want to focus my days on pausing, connecting, and playfulness. The key word there, right, is I'm consistently trying to remind myself to pause, to be back in the moment, to take a deep breath, to just be in the moment, to pause, to not rush the moment. And that's what the art of stopping is about. It's about how to fit. There are many ways to fit stopping into your busy life. And one of those moments is a micro moment. And he says you can do this like 20 times a day. And what you do is you, with your eyes open or closed, you just take a deep breath. Exhale. And you say, thank you. And then you say, I remember. And you can say, I remember, I really love listening to my kids' laughter. I remember that I'm a person that is kind and calm. Whatever it is in that moment, you can pause. I remember that I want to leave this podcast making sure that I've given my all so that another mom feels seen and heard and safe and validated in motherhood. And you can do these micro pauses all day long. It's just such an amazing idea. And it's totally what I've been trying to do when I first tried to rediscover joy after some different hard seasons in my life, when I felt like I was just slugging along. I set alarms on my phone all the time to remind me that I was a work in progress, that I remember that I don't have to be perfect. I remember that I can pause. I remember that I choose people over productivity. There's lots of things you can remember. When I pause, I like to wiggle my fingers and toes is another trick I've noticed, because it makes my whole body more in the moment too. So these are tiny. I bet you could fit in 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 in a day without anyone noticing. You can do this without announcing it to your kids. Like, just set a time. Whenever I look at the clock and it's a new hour, I'm going to take a micro pause. I'm going to make a micro stop. Take a breath in, say thank you, and then say, I remember. It's always the simple things, right? Like things that seem like, oh, that's not complicated, but then it's the simple things that are not always easy to do. So The Art of Stopping, that's the second book. And the third book that I read, so the second book I'm not done with, but wanted to put that out there. The third book I've read this month is called Limitless Mind by Jo Boaler, and she's a mathematician at Stanford. And the subtitle of this book is Learn, Lead, and Live Without Barriers. And if you've ever read Mindset by Carol Dweck, I think that this is the next book you need to read in terms of a growth mindset approach to living. She walks through about collaboration and creativity and compassion for yourself and curiosity. There's just so much in this book, but it's like the next step to growth mindset. Once you've figured out that your brain isn't stuck, then, and you can keep learning no matter how old you are, that your neural pathways are always going to keep changing if you give them feedback, then you can use the approaches in the Limitless Mind book to learn. And it was really good to hear that, yes, some people's brains seem to make those neural pathways faster. So we value speed, and we think that speed of learning shows aptitude, but that's not necessarily true. In fact, right, there's that poster around town that bugs me that says Einstein was not an Einstein in school or something like that, because his neural pathways for how that school was teaching didn't line up with his overall brilliance, right? He needed lots of space to do his thinking. So, Limitless Mind. Highly recommend it. It's a great book for summertime for a mom. You can read it slowly and bring it to the pool. A couple pages at a time will give you a lot to think about. And it will change how you speak to your kids. It will change how you approach problems yourself. Like, I am now challenging myself to do some work with spelling this summer, because I always told myself I wasn't a spelling sort of person. So I've given myself a lot of slack with misspelling words, but I'm going to approach it with a limitless mind and work on my own spelling this summer. And I can't wait to see improvement, because I know that I can improve. Okay, there we go. Those are the 3 books. And the last thing I want to tell you, the big idea I had when I started this podcast for today, is this quote by the composer Claude Debussy. And he is a French composer. And his quote that's been driving me crazy is, "Music is the space between the notes." Music is the space between the notes. That it's the emptiness of the moment that makes us appreciate the resonance and the expression and the pitch and all the things of music. The volume, right? So it's the space, it's that silence that fully lets us hear the music. And I think that this is my reminder for this holiday weekend for you, and for the whole start of summer for me. It's the silence, it's the space between your activities. It's the space between all the to doing, right? We know that mothers are verbs. It's the space that we leave in our schedules, the space that we leave that is empty in our days. When we pause and do that moment of stopping and take that deep breath, that space that we leave when we watch the microwave timer count down when we're cooking something, instead of rushing to the next thing, that space is what allows us to fully appreciate life. That without the space between the notes and music, it's just an endless stream. And without the space, the stopping to pause in our life, it just goes too fast for us to catch it. And I had kids to enjoy them, and I'm sure you did too. So let me throw this out there as both the self-care and the family play idea. For the self-care, I want you to try that micro stopping moment. See if you can do it like 3 times. And if you notice a difference when you go to bed that evening. And if 3 times makes an improvement, see if you can do it 6 times or 5 times. Maybe you have to set alarms on your phone. Or maybe you just set a time on the clock, like anytime you see the numbers 3 and 5 on the clock or something, in any combination. And then for the space to appreciate our kids, I challenge you for your family fun idea to go for a walk with your kids and give them permission to have them take photos of something that they notice, and go slowly, right? Walk at a toddler's pace. Notice the little frogs. Notice the ants. Notice all the snails climbing up the light post. things that you rush by. Even your teenagers will notice something differently than you if you just allow the space and say, I want to go on a walk with you. Just for 5 minutes, 3 minutes. Let's go explore a yard. Let's find something beautiful to take a picture of. What do you think is beautiful? Just be with them. I am so glad to have this community. The whole Keep Calm and Mother On community is so life-giving to me. And as I think about why I started it, it's so that other moms out there raising kids a little bit younger than mine, maybe early elementary school or maybe the same age as mine, know that they're not alone in any way, right? Motherhood is too important to be serious all the time, but it's also too important to do alone. We need each other. So I just wanted to say I appreciate you, and you're why I do this podcast. You're why I spend the time and the energy and the money putting this together, that you are valuable to me, and I am so dang glad you're here. I hope you enjoy your family for this long weekend if you're in the United States. And thank you.